Okay, so Jordan, we meet, or Miss Baker, as as we know her for most of the first chapter, um, is a guest at Tom and Daisy's house. Nick meets her, and then sort of hangs out with her again at Gatsby's party in chapter 3. Now, a couple things about narratives generally is that if we meet a character once and they don't come back, that character is probably not important. They just had a purpose to fill in the narrative. But we meet Jordan twice, and at the end of that third chapter, she tells Nick to call her, that they've got to talk about stuff. She's got to tell him the story. So we know that she's going to figure in the story, right? This is established. So George and Myrtle, well, we spend a whole chapter with Myrtle, and it's not clear that she's going to be important beyond just sort of what she represents. But even if she isn't important beyond what she represents, that's still important. George, in less detail, because we don't spend as much time with him, but still important for what he represents. Jordan is a little bit more complex than that. And so this passage here, was that chapter 1? I think that I'm wrong here in my reference. I think that's chapter 3 that this is from. So Jordan Baker instinctively avoided clever, shrewd men, and now I saw that this was because she felt safer on a plane where any divergence from a code would be thought impossible. She was incurably dishonest. She wasn't able to endure being at a disadvantage, and given this unwillingness, I suppose she had begun dealing in subterfuges when she was very young in order to keep that cool, insolent smile turned to the world and yet satisfy the demands of her hard, jaunty body. So this, interestingly, so this quote comes from Nick finally remembering where he heard a story about her, or what the story was that he heard, and it was that she had cheated at some golf event. And then, so it turns out that she's a professional golfer, and there was some scandal involving her allegedly cheating, and then it kind of went away. And so he finds her sort of arrogance and the cool, insolent smile, he finds it very charming for a while. He thinks she's cool, basically. He doesn't say it that way because things weren't said that way then. But basically, he thinks she's cool. And he kind of enjoys being around that. Now, he remembers this story about her cheating at a golf tournament, and he's inclined right away to believe it, right? Like even though the story went away and was never proven, he thinks like, oh yeah, I totally get it. She totally did cheat. It makes sense with what I see from her. But this doesn't seem to bother him that much, does it? He's not particularly concerned about that, which is interesting. And I think it says a lot about the sort of caraway nature of Nick, that he can remain interested in her when he knows how untrustworthy she is, or at least strongly suspects it. And he sees her being arrogant and dismissive and condescending all the time, and kind of likes that about her, which is quite odd. But he tells us right off the bat how non-judgmental he is. And so this allows him to sort of get along with everyone. Now, I don't know how much you've thought about it so far, but do we find Jordan to be a likable character? Does anyone want to take a stand that they do find her likable?
Oh, I thought she was pretty likable at the beginning of the book, but then as we got to know her more, it seemed like she was, I don't really know how to explain it.
Yeah, I think that's it. At the beginning, you think like, oh, she's kind of sarcastic, like she's kind of smart alecky, and you kind of like that, right? Like, wow, she's smart. Like sometimes those kind of characters, particularly female characters like that, can be like some of our very favorite characters. But this seems to be, the more we get to know her, the more we find out that that's a front for her to sort of hide behind. And she is, in a lot of ways, even just as shallow as Daisy, if not more so. This, I don't know what Nick thinks he's saying about himself when he says that she avoided clever, shrewd men, if he's excluding himself from that company intentionally, or if that hadn't occurred to him yet. Certainly it occurs to us, I think, right? That is Nick intentionally disparaging himself? He's saying, well, obviously she only likes hanging around with me because she doesn't think I'm clever or shrewd, and thus I'm not going to see through her. I don't know. Worth thinking about, perhaps. Okay. Anything else we want to add about her right now? Okay.